In this video, we're going to show you our exact process for generating over 7 figures with YouTube ads for webinars. So to give you an example, here's one offer where we have sold multi 6 figures. And over here's another offer in the real estate space where we were able to do a 3x ROAS with multi 6 figures. Overall, we've generated over 7 figures in webinar sales and easily over 8 figures in high ticket sales. Now we're going to break down the whole process for you so you understand how you can do this for your own business. Before we get into this video, please hit that like button. It would make such a difference to my day if I just got a bunch of likes for the algorithmic gods of YouTube so we can get this video out to more people. All right, guys, let's get right into this video. So why would you want to use YouTube ads to promote your webinar funnel? There's a few reasons. The first reason is that people on YouTube are already watching videos, so they're in video consumption mode. It makes sense for them to go from watching videos on YouTube to watching your webinar, right? There's not that big of a difference. They're not reading, they're already primed to consume more video content. Number 2 is that many people are on YouTube to learn, right? They're in education mode. They're often watching videos on how to fix problems or find solutions. So for example, if you're selling a course on how to become a better surfer, a lot of people are on YouTube watching surfing tutorial videos trying to get better at surfing. And those are excellent people to target with YouTube ads. So those are the 2 reasons why I love YouTube ads as a place to buy traffic for your webinar funnels. And we found YouTube ads to be very profitable when running to webinar funnels. So there are a few keys to selling your offer with YouTube ads. First of all, you need the right offer. If you're selling through a webinar funnel, usually a higher price point is better. Now, this depends on niche. Now, if you're in the internet marketing or make money online space, usually you're looking at anywhere between $997 to maybe $2,000 for your automated webinar funnel. On the other hand, if you're in the fitness niche, spirituality, meditation, nutrition, dog training, or any of these other niches, you may want to go with a lower price point, which could be anywhere from $67 to maybe $300. So your price range is going to depend on the niche and the level of competition. Obviously, there are niches where people are willing to pay more to solve a problem and niches where people are willing to pay less to solve a problem. And obviously, if you're selling B2B, you want to be on the higher price end as well. Now, if you're using a webinar funnel, which leads into a phone call to sell your product, then you can get away with a higher price point. So for example, if you're selling, let's say, a coaching program for business owners, you may run an automated webinar funnel, but then on the phone call, you might sell them on a $3K, $5K, or even $10,000 offer. So when selling on a phone call, you can usually sell for a higher price, and then having them watch the whole webinar before getting on a phone call will actually increase your conversion rates a lot. And it's a lot better than sending them straight into the phone call because now they've spent an hour to 2 hours with you, learning about your offer, learning about what you provide, and so on. And that's going to just result in better results. Now, one key concept I want you to understand is the broader the niche, the lower the price. So if you're going for a really, really big niche, let's say you're going for anybody who owns a dog and wants their dog to behave better, the price is going to be usually lower. However, if you're going for a much smaller niche, which is, let's say, dog training centers, right? Like in-person dog training centers, then you'll probably want to target a higher price, right? Especially if you're teaching them how to grow their business. So bigger niches, usually lower price. Smaller niches is higher price because if you have a small niche and a low price, you're not going to make any money because there are not that many customers. Now, the second step is you want a high converting webinar. At a price point of $997, you'll typically want 2 to 3% of your leads to convert. Your earnings per lead should be $20 to $30, right? And this is in more competitive niches. This is in B2B niches. This is basically niches where the costs are higher. You need it to be $20 to $30 a lead because, for example, in the internet marketing industry, your leads are going to cost $10 to $15. Now, if it's a less competitive niche, you might only be paying $3 or $5 per lead. And in that case, you could have a lower conversion rate or a lower price, and your earnings per lead could be $10 and you'd still be very profitable. For example, in the personal development and fitness niches, you can quite easily get leads in the $3 to $6 range if you have a great funnel and a great creative. The key with webinar funnels is you really need to be an excellent copywriter that understands your market inside out. Because of the fact that it's a webinar and it's usually an automated webinar, you really have to be great at keeping their attention, usually with a 1.5 hour piece of content. Unless you're really, really good at keeping people's attention, people just won't stick around. So the biggest obstacle I see with most webinar funnels is their webinars simply just don't convert. And to be honest, it's just a lot of work to get a webinar that converts, right? Usually it requires hundreds of hours of writing, copy, and figuring it out and really testing it to create a webinar that converts at a 2 to 3% conversion rate for a $9.97 price point. Now, it is a little bit easier to convert if you have a webinar, then you send them to a phone call, and then you sell them a $5,000, $10,000 offer. It sounds a little weird, but it's actually a lot easier to make money that way, because once you get somebody on the phone after they've watched the webinar, they're much more likely to convert. And then at the higher price point, it's also much easier to be profitable. It sounds contradictory, but higher price points often lead to more profits because of the fact that, you know, your traffic is going to be expensive, and selling for a higher price point allows you to essentially make much more money from the traffic you do get. And usually what we find is if somebody's willing to pay $2,000 for something, they might be willing to pay $4,000 to $5,000. But usually there'll be a lot of people, the vast majority, who will not be willing to pay anything at all. And so I find that the higher the price point, the more value you get per lead. Now, in terms of writing a webinar, some resources I can recommend is checking out Russell Brunson's Perfect Webinar Script Formula. I would also check out Jason Flatline, as he's an expert at copywriting and webinar funnel copywriting. The truth of the matter is it will take practice and you won't get it on the first try. So again, if you are an experienced copywriter, if you've been doing webinars, if you've been doing video content, this is going to be a lot easier for you. If you are new to this, I honestly do think that there are other funnel types like the VSL funnel or the 5-day challenge, or even doing live webinars that are better. Especially if you're starting out, do live webinars versus the automated webinars, where basically you actually show up and you can interact with the audience because you'll get feedback and you'll be able to understand what they really want. While doing an automated webinar is a more advanced tactic. When you have a live webinar that's just working really well, that's when you do an automated webinar, right? You take your best live webinar that you've done and basically just run it as an automated webinar. Now let's talk about the third piece, right? Which is how to actually create great YouTube video ads for your webinar funnel. Really what you want to do is you want to understand the principles of copywriting with YouTube ads. And one of the key principles is having a very strong hook. So if you can really grab their attention and hook them in, then you're going to have them watch the ad and even convert into the webinar. So an example of a strong hook is anything that grabs their attention. So in the past, I've done things like hand movements, like hey, hey, hey. I've seen pan-ins of mansions where basically it's a drone panning in on a mansion that grabs attention because people are like, whoa, that's different. I've also seen controversial statements work. So for example, a controversial statement could be something like, YouTube ads are better than Facebook ads, and here's why, because a lot of people probably don't believe that. So when you say that, it gets people to actually watch the video because they want to understand your reasoning and actually understand the points behind why you said that controversial statement that nobody else says. It could even be a physical action, right? Now you want to have that strong hook. And after that, what we like to do is qualify the audience, which is to speak to your ideal buyer. So one example of this is, hey, if you're not interested in running YouTube ads, skip this ad right now. Because essentially I want to target the audience that is interested in YouTube ads. I want those leads to come into my funnel. I want those people to actually enter my ecosystem. It doesn't have to be a hard disqualifier. It could even be, hey, if you're interested in learning how to run YouTube ads, I'm going to give you 3 tips for how to really scale in 2021. So that's an example, right? So after the qualification phase, what I often like to do is add in some authority or some social proof, right? So usually telling them why they should listen to you. So an example of this would be, hey, so my agency has managed almost $10 million in YouTube ad spend, and we've learned 3 key things that I'm going to share with you now. So that is kind of a social proof there, because I'm talking about the results I got so people understand why they should keep watching my video. So from there, you're actually going to go into your actual offer that you're giving them. So if it's a webinar, you may want to tell them, hey, so I've learned XYZ from running YouTube ads for my clients, and I want to share that with you on this webinar. In this webinar, you're going to learn how to do 1, 2, 3, right? You're going to actually tease what they'll learn on this webinar, and that's what's going to actually get them to click through, because if you just give away the farm on the ad, they're not really going to be interested in watching the webinar. So make sure those are juicy, make sure that you're giving them really interesting stuff that they actually want to learn. What you want to do next is have an early call to action. So you've kind of hooked them in, qualified them tease them with what they'll learn in the webinar. And now you want to tell them, hey, go click the link above or below to go sign up for this webinar and this live training where I'm going to teach you all these things. And from there, you get into the second part of the ad, right? So the first part of the ad is really to get those people who are already interested into the webinar, right? They'll click through. However, there's a big subset of viewers who are still going to want more information. So at this point, you may want to introduce some more social proof. You may want to show an example of one of your students that did really well. You may want to go deeper into what you learned on the webinar, or you may even want to bust some objections, right? So sometimes people might have some common objections. So in this part of the ad, you can actually say something like, hey, a lot of people think that YouTube ads can't work for them, but actually, even if you're XYZ, this will work for you, right? So that's an example of what you want after that first call to action. So adding social proof where you show your students doing well, busting objections, and giving them more reasons to opt in. After that, you want to have your second call to action, which is again going to be similar to the first call to action. And then you finish the ad with a countdown timer, so you give them some time to click. So that's a very basic ad structure. Now you can modify this, you can switch things around and have certain elements earlier and certain elements later, but that gives you some of the main elements of a YouTube video ad that works. Now I highly recommend you use resources like VidTow or Video Ad Vault to do some spying on your competitors' ads and to understand what works well, but that gives you a general structure. Now, what's really important when shooting your ads, especially if it's for a webinar funnel, is to really have an ad where you have a really great tonality, your voice is very engaging, you modulate your voice, right? So sometimes it's louder, sometimes it's quieter, you keep up a good pace, and the ad needs to be done in a manner where it's engaging and interesting to watch. So a few tips for this is, number one, I like to actually practice the delivery of the ad the day before I shoot. And number two is I like to drink coffee and then actually do 5 to 6 takes of the ad. So every take you do, your ad's going to get better. Don't try to rush this. Leave a few hours to actually shoot your ad and do it really well. Now, once you've shot your ad, you do want to do some editing in there. So add in some B-roll footage, add in some transitions, maybe do some zoom ins, zoom outs, keep the ad interesting. Editing can really make a difference in your ad by keeping viewers' attention versus a boring ad where you just speak to the camera. That's not really going to hold people's attention. So I would highly recommend actually adding in some editing. A great tip I got is from Parker Walbeck, which is the 10-second rule, where you don't want to spend more than 10 seconds in the video without something happening, without some sort of editing or a cut or a transition. And that usually keeps things a lot more interesting on the videos. So guys, that's how you shoot the ads. Hopefully those ad tips will help you shoot some really high converting YouTube video ads. From here, I actually want to go into how to set up your first YouTube ad campaign. So we're going to do a screen share where I'm going to show you the exact process for setting up ads. So we're going to shift straight to the screen share now. Okay guys, now let's quickly talk about tracking. I'm not going to bore you guys with super technical tracking details, but I'm just going to give you the basics that you need to be able to really get the tracking down. So the tools we're going to use here, Google Ads conversion tracking. Now, basically with the tracking, what you essentially can do is you can set up conversions with Google Ads conversions. So you go to this tools and settings, you click on conversions, and then you will click the plus button, and usually it's going to be a website conversion, right? So let's say you can either do leads, or you can, for example, if somebody is opted in, you can put them as a contact, right? And if somebody purchased, you can put them as a purchase. So for example, let's say they're a lead. So we'll call this lead opted in, right? Usually I don't use a value for leads and I click on this one, right? Because really a person could opt in multiple times, but we really only count the first one. And yeah, we keep the click through and the view through at 30 days and 1 day. And you would click create and continue. Now at this point, there's a few options, right? If you have a web developer, you can email the tag, you can install the tag yourself, which is the manual way. What I suggest is Google Tag Manager. So using Google Tag Manager allows you to really install tags really easily. So what Google Tag Manager is, it's basically a tool that allows you to place different tags, and tags are things like Facebook pixel, the Google conversion tracking pixel, the Google remarketing tag. And with Google Tag Manager, you install it once on your website, right? So let's say you use ClickFunnels, look up how to set up Google Tag Manager on ClickFunnels, set it up once, and then you just go in here and you can basically add tags in here. So instead of having to go inside the website and then hard coding each conversion each time you want to do it, you just go in here, add in a new tag. Let's say it's the Google Ads conversion tracking ad tag. All that you'll do is you'll go here, you'll copy conversion ID, bam, conversion label. It's just so easy with Google Tag Manager. And then you'll figure out the triggers. So if, for example, usually you'll trigger a lead on the thank you page after they opt in. So you'll have an opt-in and then you'll take them to a thank you page. So what you'll do is you'll add a new trigger and let's say visited thank you page for lead. Click here, page view, and only on some page views. And then you would do, okay, page URL. And then you would add in, let's say, thank you page lead form. Now, obviously, I'm not going to save this because as you can tell, we have a pretty complex tracking system. I don't want to mess it up and get my tracking guy angry at me, but you get the idea, right? Now, let's talk about how to set up campaigns and the various targeting options with YouTube ads, right? So I'm going to show you how this whole thing works, right? So what you do is you click on a new campaign. You're going to go click on either sales or leads. It really doesn't make too much of a difference. You're going to click on video and you're going to get this drive conversions. And you'll name your campaign, whatever you want to name it. Typically, I'll put in the targeting and the funnel I'm sending them to, as well as the name of ads I'm basically targeting. So, and also put in the date. So I'll do something like put usually the date first, so it's easy to see. And then the bidding types. So there are two main bidding types you want to keep in mind. There's target CPA and there's maximize conversion. So I'll put in something like target CPA. So that means that it's basically what Google's going to try to do is get you conversions at a certain cost per conversion with target CPA. With maximize conversions, it's better for newer accounts, but it can cost more. So let's just say I'm going to do target CPA to get started. If you're just starting out, I would do maximize conversions. So, and then you would do, let's say, your targeting options. So one targeting option could be YouTube advertising keywords, right? Keywords, and then let's say I'm going to put in 3 ads into it. So I'll call this multiple ads because I'm going to put 3 ads into this campaign. So with target CPA, there's typically going to be a bid. So I'm going to put in a $20 target CPA. And I'm kind of telling Google that, hey, I'm willing to pay $20 for a conversion. Now, it doesn't mean that conversions will come in for $20. A lot of times they can come in for lower. So it's something to keep in mind. This is where you set the daily budget. I typically will start campaigns at anywhere from $25 to $50. I'll put in $50. Typically, Google will tell you to spend a lot more budget. However, in my experience, it's better to start with a small budget. If a campaign goes well, you can always increase it. But in my experience, it's always better to be a little bit more conservative. So a pretty big change that's happened recently is you're not able to unselect video partners on the display network. Now, this basically means that your ad will show up on third-party websites, right? Not just on YouTube. And this could be websites like CNN.com, it could be random bloggers websites, etc. So just a heads up on this. This is a recent change and you can't really unselect this. And honestly, I don't really know a workaround other than reusing old campaigns. So just reusing old campaigns and changing the audience and ad on them, but keeping them as they are, or using Google Ads Editor, which I have a video on the channel if you look up YouTube Google Ads Editor tutorial. And with Google Ads Editor, we're still able to duplicate campaigns and keep them without the display network. I'm sure that will go away soon, so don't assume that it's going to be around for long. But yeah, that's just a heads up on that. I would just put in English if you're targeting the English market. And inventory type, I like expanded because I don't really care if my ads show up in front of, a violent video or whatever. For me, it doesn't make a difference. However, if you're working for a brand that really cares about that, I would choose standard or limited inventory. Now, you can also decide where you want to show up or not show up. Typically, live streaming videos might be a good idea to kind of block those, because if people are live streaming something, people are not going to want to really watch a long ad. And yeah, other than that, if you're trying to avoid showing in front of mature audiences, you can do that. Typically, again, as I said, I don't really care too much, so I'll just have live streaming videos there. You can use these site link extensions. We've tested these. You'll want to make sure that basically you can't send them to the same page you're sending your ad to. So if your ad URL is, let's say, linxdigitalagency.com/case study, you can't send them to the same URL. So what you could do here is you could send them to a frequently asked questions or tips and tricks or another page that's kind of relevant, and then you can get a higher click-through rate with this. So site link extensions can often work quite well if you know what you're doing with them. So this is the product feed. You can show basically products with your ads. This is more for an e-commerce feature, so that's something to keep in mind if you're doing e-commerce. I'll usually do account level conversion settings. I may exclude TV screens because it's kind of hard to click on TV screens. In terms of frequency capping, I will do this. I will typically put in, let's say in terms of impressions per day, 3 impressions per day and then 2 per week. That's a decent number. It makes sure that your ads are not showing to the same people like bazillion times. And yeah, you can even have an ad schedule, so you can decide when your ads show up. So I'm going to cut into Past Shash again for another quick update. So back in the day, you could actually choose between responsive and InStream. So in the past, you would see this. And what this would be is you would be able to choose between responsive and standard. And now you can only choose responsive. And what this essentially means is your ads will show up either as video discovery or InStream, but you can't basically choose which one. Now, this isn't a big deal. We're getting really good results with responsive campaigns, so we're not really worried about it. In one of our accounts, they're outperforming the InStream ads quite a bit. So there isn't that much of a downside to this, right? Yes, it is less control, but many people are making it out to be the end of YouTube ads. And in reality, that's not the truth. You just have to get used to the new format, and we'll go over the new format later in this video. And same thing here with your ad group name. You can name the ad group. Typically what we'll do is we'll have 1 campaign, 1 ad group, and 3 to 4 different ads in there. So the demographics also are a really useful option here. So for example, if you're selling a high ticket info product, you're probably gonna not sell to 18 to 24-year-olds, and you probably want to exclude the lower 50% of household income. So we'll play around and test this, but typically we find for high ticket offers, we will either go top 30% or top 50%. And one thing to keep in mind is that household income is only in certain countries, and it's really a lot more accurate in the US. In certain countries like Brazil, for example, it's there, but it's not as accurate. Now with YouTube, there are a bunch of different targeting options, right? So you have a lot of these audiences. So with audiences, you have multiple types, right? So there is remarketing and similar audiences. So this is basically YouTube's version of remarketing and lookalikes. So remarketing is basically, let's say, people who've already interacted with your YouTube channel or your website or your email list, right? People you've uploaded. The other option is similar audiences, which is people that are similar to other people who've taken action. So it's people who are similar to your YouTube viewers, people who are similar to converters, people who are similar to website visitors. So that's kind of Google's version of lookalike audiences. We haven't had amazing success with them, but they're worth testing out, especially if you can layer them with something else to make them narrower. So an incredible custom audience that you can use is custom intent audiences, which are basically based on what they're searching on google.com. So in our case, as you can see, if they're searching for YouTube advertising, we can target them on YouTube with that custom audience. So that's a really cool targeting idea. Optimized targeting is a new feature. What it does, it uses your landing page information, your website, etc., to help optimize your ads. You can disable this after. We haven't really tested this because it's a very new feature, so we're still the jury's still out on this. Now, there are more targeting options, right? There's actually, even in audiences, there's a lot more audiences in here, right? So on top of these custom audiences, there's in-market and life events. So in-market is when they're searching for something. So for example, they could be looking for certain business services. So if you're, let's say, and staffing and recruitment company. There is an audience for people who are looking for staffing and recruitment services. So again, this is a really, really useful targeting option. So with life events, you can target people who are looking at creating new businesses, look at people who just graduated college, people who are renovating their home or are going to renovate it, even marriage, moving, people who've gotten a new pet or a new cat or dog, people who are buying a home soon, right? So there's a gold mine of targeting options here. And then you also have other options like keywords, where basically you target YouTube videos based on their metadata. So if a YouTube video has a certain title and you, let's say, put in, let's say, e-commerce advertising. So YouTube will go out and find videos related to e-commerce advertising and show your ad in front of those videos. So that's one option. So topics are basically videos about certain subjects. So then YouTube will show your videos in front of certain topics. So as you can see, if I wanted to, I could click business and industrial, and then I can go down here and go into advertising and marketing. And then I can target people who are watching videos about email marketing or direct mail marketing. And there's so many of these. So there's like SEO services, I believe, as well. And then the last one is placements. So placements allows you to target channels and videos that are about specific targeting. So one really great tool we use is this tool called TubeSift. So you can log in here. You can actually put in a keyword and it will give you a bunch of videos about that topic. So let's say we want dieting tips for keto, right? Let's say you have a keto product that helps you lose weight. So now you have a bunch of really popular videos that are about keto and weight loss, and you can basically show your ad in front of these videos. So let's say you're selling a high-ticket coaching program on how to scale your Amazon business. So let's say scale Amazon business. You can enter that keyword. And now you're getting a bunch of videos that are all about scaling Amazon. It does take a little bit of time to pull up these results, but you can just let this run on the background. And once this is done, get the links from here, cut, go into enter, paste, and then you have your placements. Now you're targeting videos about Amazon. Perfect. And then you would throw your ad in here. Okay, so now we're actually going to show you how to set up your ad. So the first thing you need to do is actually go into YouTube and get your ad URL. Now, if you haven't uploaded your ad already, what you can do is click this plus button, click upload video. So you'll need to create a YouTube account, which you can do with any Gmail account. But then you go in there, click that button, upload video, set it as unlisted, and then grab this URL here and go inside Google Ads and put it in here, right? So what you're going to see here is in the past, you could choose between responsive and InStream, and now it's only responsive, which means you have both video discovery ads. So this is a video discovery ad. And then you also have the InStream format, which is this right here, which is the traditional YouTube ad. Now we've had great results with both formats. So this is completely normal. Do not worry about it. You'll still get great results with YouTube ads, but there are a few key differences. The first thing you'll notice is there's a lot less copy on the InStream format. On the InStream format, what you have here is this headline right here. And then you also have this call to action button. And then obviously you'll have your display URL, your final URL, etc. But you're not going to have these two right here. These are just for the responsive format. So if you look at this responsive format, you will see that this is the long headline and this is our description. So this gives you a lot of copy. And what you can do with this is you can actually split test the copy here and be able to really increase click-through rates by split testing ad copy. Now, keep in mind with this current format with video action ads, which is, basically target CPA and maximize conversions, you are not going to have video discovery on the desktop. On desktop, all you're going to have is InStream. So if you try to click on video discovery on desktop, all you see is InStream right here. And that's how that works. Another thing to keep in mind is your ads will show up on Google Video Partners. Like we discussed, that is compulsory and you don't have the option to change that now. So what you're going to have to do is essentially make sure to take a look at how your ad looks like on the Video Partners side. So over here, you can see that on mobile, you have the video discovery option as well as the InStream option. So these will show up on third-party websites. So for example, this InStream ad will show up in front of videos in other websites. while this may show up on other pages on their website as well. So these are going to show up in third-party websites. Just keep that in mind. On the desktop version of Google Video Partners, you're only going to have it show up as InStream in front of videos. So if you're, for example, you're on a news site and you click on a video, you may actually get shown an InStream ad. Now, one last thing to keep in mind is you can also create a companion banner. So a companion banner is basically an image or a group of images that you can upload. Essentially with InStream ads, what it does is if you go on YouTube and InStream, this is where your companion banner is going to show up. And that's why the format is 300 by 60. And then that's going to increase your click-through rates if you have a really great companion banner right here. I would typically recommend using something that kind of summarizes what your ad is and like the main call to action. So something like click below to get your free training, and then they can go get the free training. So another last key piece of advice I want to give you guys is to name the ad properly. With this ad, for example, since it's this script and storyboard ad, I have that in the name and I keep it consistent between campaigns. If I'm using this ad in a bunch of different campaigns, I'm going to keep it with that same name because that will make analysis much easier. And that's it, guys. When you click this, you will create your first YouTube ads campaign. Now, in the next part of the video, we're going to talk about how you can analyze your results for a campaign and use that data to make better decisions.
All right, so once you've actually set up your campaigns and you have had a few days, then you'll want to look at your campaigns to see what performance is like. So I'm looking at one of my campaigns, and one of the things you want to look at is, let's say, your cost per lead. If you're running a VSL funnel where you're sending traffic to VSL, you want to understand your cost per lead, and you want to really aim for under, $15 if you can. $20 okay, $15 is great. $10 and lower for high ticket coaching is awesome. Now, if you're in a niche like health and fitness, you'll probably want to be aiming for $3 to $5, or if you're in a niche like music coaching, etc. Right? So depending on your niche, your cost per lead could be anywhere from $3 to like $25, right? Ultimately, what matters is how much revenue you make from that lead, and that's why some niches are more expensive than others. Now, a few things you want to take a look at is I also have a custom conversion set up for book calls and the book calls cost per acquisition. So we're getting $173 per book call, which is I'm pretty happy with. And then a few other metrics you want to look at is if you click on these columns, you want to have a click-through rate, you want to have cost per click and average cost per view. So those are also important to take a look at. So the reason I like looking at click-through rate is it tells me how well the ad is doing. So we're getting a 2.96% click-through rate, which tells me the ad is hitting with the audience and people like this video ad. Our cost per click is pretty high because this is a competitive niche. Average cost per view is also quite high because, once again, this is a competitive niche, right? But yeah, overall, I'm decently happy with the performance of this campaign. So that gives you an idea of how to optimize your campaigns. Now from here, what you can do is you can go into the ad level. In this case, we only have one ad, but if you have multiple ads, you can take a look at the performance of each ad and how they're doing. So yeah, that's pretty much how to analyze your campaigns. And once you've got your first campaign set up, then all you have to do is just test more targeting options and test more ads. And then you're off to the races with YouTube ads, and yeah, you could make it work quite well for you.
All right, guys, I hope that video was useful. So that gives you everything you need to really start running YouTube ads for webinars. Let me know if you have any questions, and we have a ton of videos on this channel, so go check some of them out. Another video that I recommend checking out is my YouTube ads targeting video. So I have a bunch of targeting options detailed in there, and I'd highly recommend checking that video out. Thanks for watching.